So 2020 has been a rough year. I think we can all agree on that one. I mean, maybe you've had an amazing year, and if so, congratulations. But for the rest of us, it's kind of been sucky. So we're coming up on 2021, and it's going to be the best year ever with our New Year's resolutions. Is that right?
That is 100% correct.
Yes. So here we go. Welcome to the Woman Being Podcast community,
where we explore thoughts and opinions
and have the freedom to change our minds.
Without expectation or judgment,
we will hold a safe space and support each other
as we navigate together in the form of feminine.
So I'm here with the beautiful Emma and Kelly Ann. I am Kelly, and we're here today to talk about the new year and the 365 days we have set before us and the New Year's resolutions that come along with that. So to start us off today, New Year's resolutions. Good, bad, ugly? Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think the intention of New Year's resolutions are beautiful. I think the heart is good. I think when they start being implemented, they can obviously fall a little short most of the time for most of us. As well as like with the wrong intention, it can be pretty toxic and it can really damage you. I think there's something to be said about fresh starts, and I think that's great, but also like you have a fresh start every day. Like, also there are 12 months in the year, so you could also say I have 12 fresh starts, throughout the year.
Or 52.
Or 52. Week. I think there are lots of ways you can spin it. I don't think it's good to put pressure on yourself, though, to change everything.
Yeah.
And be the ultimate human you are designed and called to be just because there's a new year. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I feel like New Year's resolutions haven't really ever been like a huge thing. They haven't really been something that I'm like always setting goals for. But I also get the whole, they can be pretty toxic and they can be sort of like, there is a lot of pressure at this time of year to be like, okay, these are all the ways I'm going to improve myself. Like, I'm evaluating this past year, and now I'm going to the new year, and I'm going to change all these things, and it's going to be great. And I can get why people have that that tendency, because like it is like a new year on the calendar that when we are dating things, we now are going to put in a different number at the end. And that is a shift, and that is a marker that people like to use to signify a shift in their own lives as well. I think that celebrating New Year's is super fun. But yeah, I mean, I understand why the people feel that pressure, but I also see how like a lot of times people set really unrealistic goals for their New Year's, or they think that they can just like, oh, it's a new year, now I'm going to just do this. And even though it didn't work at all last year, I can do it this year because it's a new year. And it's like, oh, that's actually not the way that like true habits are formed and true life changes happen. They're much more gradual than that. So I think it can be a helpful time to set intentions, to reflect back on your past year and think about all the things that were good, things that were bad, things that, and like sort of evaluate yourself and give yourself feedback in that year. But yeah, it's not a time where we're going to just transform. We're not butterflies coming out of the cocoon instantly, totally new and different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I actually feel like leading into 2020, at least in the Christian space, and I think in a lot of spaces, just because 2020 is like, 2020 vision, that sort of thing. It's like it's a big it's the beginning of a decade essentially. Mm-hmm. We're entering the 20s, which is great. But I felt like walking into this year, we set the bar so high when it came to expectations. This is going to be the year of clarity. This is going to be the year of vision. This is when we're going to, set our sights on, X, Y, and Z, and it's going to be awesome. And I think it's going to be the best year yet kind of thing. And it literally plummeted after that. January, February, there was kind of this like excitement about the year 2020, and then it just sort of went dead. And I think well, it's good to like look to your year and you have goals and you have like hope, like hold on to hope. But it seems like every new year gets so hyped that it's just like an inevitability of disappointment every year. It's kind of like, it was just sort of another year.
Yeah.
Like I didn't turn into this superhuman self that I was hyping myself up to, it's like, and I also think the narratives around that are a little toxic, where it's like, hey, take your crappy, mediocre life and start reading the Bible every day so that you can be a superhuman kind of thing. And that's a totally great goal, reading the Bible every day. I'm not knocking that, but it kind of comes with this connotation that like, oh, you kind of suck, so it's a new year, do better. It's like, we're not recognizing like, first of all, the grace that we need to do that with, and then also like the fact that it takes time to cultivate like healthy habits and like to build character and to grow actually as a human. Like you can't just like become patient and kind overnight. Like it's a slow, gradual process of life.
Yeah, I think people kind of want to shelf their humanity at the beginning of the year. And I mean, while everyone was speaking into the beauty of 2020, it brought a lot of hardships, obviously. But I also think it really revealed where we need to do better as a society, ways we need to care for each other more, ways we need to grow and continue to push for equality in all kinds of spaces, ways practically we need to prepare for things and look ahead. I mean, my heart breaks for all the people that have, had financial difficulties, lost loved ones, businesses that have died due to the pandemic, and my heart breaks for that. But I think it also shows like ways we need to be better for everyone's sake, not just the individual. But it's always interesting to approach the new year because everyone's always like, this year is gonna be my year. And I feel like that really sets us up for disappointment. I mean, if you reference back to our mental health episode with Ashley, she talks about like setting expectations so high sets you up for disappointment because our expectation is level 10,000 and everything it's gonna fall short, right? And that's okay. That's life, right? Like life is still life, and we're doing life with other humans in an imperfect world. So just keeping that in mind as we approach the new year.
Yeah, I think that like mental health wise too, like people, I'm pretty sure most people give up on their New Year's resolutions like halfway through January. Maybe they make it through February. And honestly, like those are also some of the saddest times of the year. It's cold,
less sunlight,
it's winter, people are getting, seasonal
depression, seasonal affective disorder.
The holidays are over, so you're off that high of like the holiday season and of seeing your family. And this year, if you didn't get to see your family at all during the holidays, then you're just sort of riding in that disappointment. And so I can see how also then on top of that, not having reached this insane goal that you've given yourself of a New Year's resolution would just add on to all of those things that are working against you and your mental health during that time.
Absolutely.
And like, what we'll do is, for example, if your New Year's resolution is like, I'm going to work out every day for like, period. I'm going to work out every day.
Yeah.
For the rest of my life.
Yeah, I guess. No end date, really. Or I'll work out every day this year.
Yeah.
You miss one day, and then that turns into, oh, well, I'm a failure. I missed one day of this. I feel ashamed to try to even start back. I can't even go back to working out because I already missed this one day. So I've already messed it up. I've already failed my New Year's resolution. I'm not worth continuing this.
Right.
Like that it spirals.
Yeah.
And you can like I think that New Year's resolutions can be good and helpful, just as any sort of resolution to
Or goal,
or goal
yeah.
can be helpful. But when you when it's something that affects you so much that you fall into that spiral of sort of just giving up on it the second that you're not perfect at it, or the second that it isn't working out the way you thought it was, or you aren't seeing results as quickly as you thought you would, or you're just not as good at this yet as you want to be, whatever it is, like, you are setting yourself up for failure, and you're also not allowing yourself to have grace in that process as you are learning a new thing. Learning new things are really hard, especially once you get older. Your brain just doesn't learn things as quickly, and working out can be really hard if you don't see results right away. You're not going to, probably. It all depends on your body type, and your body's not going to look like that other person's body. That's a whole other thing. But
Yeah.
No, I'm really glad you touched on that failure piece, because I feel like people do tend to be like really hard on themselves. Like, I've set this goal, I've made this plan, I've wanting to make this change or whatever. It's almost like, it kind of reminds me of almost like recovery for addiction. Like, you plan for relapse, and you have plans set in place for what to do when that happens. I feel like the same thing needs to be in place when we set goals. And that doesn't necessarily need to be with the new year. Like, when it's time in your life, I feel like when you have space for something. And you can set plans for when this doesn't work out. How are you going to get back on track and pursue that better, more ideal situation for your life?
There's also, like, this idea of, like, oh, this is the word for the year, or this is my focus for the year. And it sometimes seems like you can have a focus for longer than a year. Like, you don't necessarily need to, like, shift every year on something new. And I see it in businesses. I see doing this in churches and families and individuals. Is kind of like, oh, my year, or the word for this year is gonna be peace or something like that. And so you're focusing on that all year, which is not really enough time to cultivate a long-lasting like discipline in your life necessarily. And I'm not knocking the concept of it. I think it's a great concept, but when it's born out of this is what people do in New Year's, instead of an individual personal, this is something I want for myself in my life, it just becomes like a thing that you like kind of throw out there, and it doesn't really land. And so it feels like, whether it's a word or a resolution or a goal or whatever, like, you need to make sure this is something that you actually want. And it's not just like, I probably could use the pounds, so I guess my resolution is to, like, hit the gym every week. Like, you're not really benefiting yourself. It's like, are you actually serving the actual goals that you have in your life as a whole human being?
Like, what kind of human do you want to be?
Right.
And how can those things support you?
Exactly. It seems like if I want to be, like, a 5-star athlete, that's not just a year's goal, like, that's a lifetime decision that I have to, like, really hone in on, and every month, like, be checking in on myself and, like, sticking to it. And if it's like you don't like working out, and then you randomly come out of the blue like, I'm gonna hit the gym all the time, like, you're not really setting yourself up for success. It has to be something, you have to find something that you like that achieves the goals that you're wanting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you set a goal that's sort of superficial in that way, where its motivation is superficial, meaning that, like, it's, oh, well, I would like to lose a couple pounds, end of story, end of motivation, then you're not going to really be all that motivated. And I think that if instead your motivation is, well, I want to improve my health because I want to be able to be there for my family, because I want to watch my kids and my grandkids grow up, or because I want to be able to grow old with my spouse, or I want to outlive my dog, I don't know. Then you are then so much more motivated to go to the gym, to work out, and to find how that works for you, because you are motivated by something that is sincere and meaningful to you
Right.
rather than just, oh, I want to lose a couple pounds.
And you've essentially set a goal that is achieving a long-term desire. It's not so
Yeah.
much like, this year I want to, I don't even know. I'm trying to think of things other than working out, because that's
Yeah.
the one that gets all the
Yeah.
the trash. Like, I want to bake every week, or like a new thing or something like that.
You'll really have to work out then.
Like, yeah. Also, like, you're gonna have so many ingredients.
Right. It was like, that's like, if let's say you're a baker, and that's actually something that you see like as a long-term thing that you want for your life. Like, yeah, set a short-term goal that like helps kickstart that. But like, if you just like kind of like baking, like, you're not going to be successful in the things that you're like only superficially motivated to do, essentially. Like those long-term, like, who do I want to be as a person?
Yeah.
Not just like, oh, I could do better next year.
Yeah. And I think that you're really hitting the nail on the head with being okay with process.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to wake up 2021 and be like, okay, I'm ready to do this every year. Or not every year. I mean, every day or once a week or whatever. It's like you have to ease into things as a human. Like, that's just how it works. How you develop habits takes time. And you're actually not going to execute things perfectly because we're not robots. We're people with emotions and lives, and things happen. And making peace with the fact that there will be process from point A to point B is going to be part of your success.
Yeah. And also, like, you're a woman, and so you're fluctuating in your cycle throughout the month, and
Yep.
you're gonna have more energy some days and less energy other days, and like having grace for yourself in the midst of that. And like, even men have fluctuating depending on your stress levels and exterior environment. Like, you're not gonna be the same every day.
Yeah.
And so like, it's unrealistic to assume that like, oh, I'm just gonna pick this up and be great.
And you're not going to produce the same results every day.
Yeah.
Like, if I had a New Year's resolution to write every day, that would be quite a resolution. But, you know, I could write a chapter one day and barely poop out a few sentences the next day. And that's just going to depend on your creative headspace and
Yeah.
what's going on in your life, how much energy you have. And so I think there needs to be an acceptance of what that can look like. Like, you're not going to show up to the gym and hit, 100 squats without breaking a sweat every day. Like, there's going to be a process. And then there's recovery.
Yeah.
And I think that's something people don't plan for a lot with the workout space, is like, you actually have to allow space for your body to rest. And I'd be interested too to hear, I mean, I don't know if there's studies on this or not, but even creatives, like, maybe you need to like work your creative muscles, but you also need to let those creative muscles rest as well.
I would say definitely. Yeah. Your brain, like,
Yeah.
it can be on and it can be off, and
Yeah.
it's got to have space to do both.
Can overwork.
Yeah. I think even like one thing I struggle with is I'm a 3. Okay, so like, we're always trying, or maybe not all of us, but as a 3, there's always something I could be doing better. There's always something I should be doing. There's always something I'm not doing enough of. Like, I'm hyper aware of all of those things. And so the idea of the New Year's resolution almost like adds a whole nother load onto like the load I feel like as humans we all already carry about like not being enough. And it's like, look at the things that are important in your life, like, are they growing? Are you incrementally getting better every day? Like, why throw another like pack of bricks on top of that, like, it's a hard life. We're all growing and trying to do, like, maybe you're like, oh, I'm working out and I'm getting better, but I want to get better faster. Then sure. But like, let's be realistic about like, I want to, I don't even know, read I love reading and I want to read even more books. It's like, well, is that actually benefiting you? Like, are you trying to expedite something, or like,
Yeah. What's the real goal in there?
yeah,
Is it just because that sounds like an impressive thing to do?
sure.
Because if that's the case, you're probably not going to wind up doing it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I already touched on this, but if it's something that's truly coming from like a core desire that you have, then you're going to be so much more successful with it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you say as a 3 that you have these different pressures on you. I feel like as a 4, I keep seeing these posts lately that are like, to 4s that are like, remember that if you take on a creative endeavor and you aren't great at it from the very start, that's okay. There's a process of getting better, and you're not the creative genius you think you are right out the box. And I'm like, ugh. But that makes you think of like, if you're not great at something that's a new resolution, a new goal from the very start, like you have room to improve. Like you can keep pushing in that. That doesn't mean that you are automatically bad at it.
Totally.
There are things that people are more inclined towards, things that people have a more natural skill set or talent towards. But there's also work in that, in cultivating it.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like even there's space for feeling like you should be going after something. You know, like, oh, it's the new year, I should be doing this. Like, as we're talking, I'm thinking back to, if you follow The Bird's Papaya, she posted this video several months back and it stuck with me. And it was a repost of someone who, it's literally shows this woman walking out into the rain and laying down. And it shows this text of like, I have been feeling overwhelmed and anxious. My husband has left me. I'm a single mom of 3. I'm working on my master's degree online. I'm trying to keep this family together, like all these things. And then at the very end, she says, how many of you during this video thought a snarky comment about my weight? Because she was an overweight person. And it makes me think of these concepts we have in our brains of like, oh, you're doing all these things, but you should add this on top of it too. Mm-hmm. And I think there's also this mentality of like, well, this is the most obvious thing that you are like struggling with or should grow in, so you should be focusing on that. But we don't actually take into consideration the holisticness of humans. Like, she's a mom, she's going through a divorce, like she, you know, all these things, and it's like, it's true. Like we make those assumptions about each other and make those assumptions about ourselves. The reality is we're not going to have it all together. Like there is going to be one section of your life that slips up a little, and that's actually okay. That's part of life. And also making peace with the fact that it might not look the way other people tell you it should look.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I mean, I think like if I were to boil it down, I would say I'm not knocking New Year's resolutions as a whole, but it seems like if it's just sort of like a trend, it's not necessarily serving you unless it's something that genuinely is coming out of your heart.
Yeah.
And so like as we look into the new year, I would say the major question should be, is my New Year's resolution forcing me to serve it, or is it serving me? Mm-hmm. Like, is it like helping motivate me into something I genuinely want? Or am I a slave to like a goal that I've just set for myself that I feel like I ought to have?
Yeah.
That's kind of like what I narrow it down to. So that being said, have y'all had resolutions in the past that worked well and not so well? And what were they?
I mean, I've made all the popular resolutions. Because it's kind of like a Christian culture thing, I feel like especially
totally
with like Lent. So it's like normal for us to be like, we should always be looking at what we can get rid of in our lives to be better Christians, more holy, focused people. So I've done the no sugar, I've done the working out, and all as like a young person, by the way. This is like pre-21.
Right, which it feels like when you're like 12, like you don't really need to be worried about a New Year's resolution at all. Like you don't need to be worried about like not eating at Lent. Like you just need to be like growing.
Yeah, and worrying about school.
Yeah, like that's your only concern.
And trying
I feel like
not
for a
to
young
explode
person.
with emotions.
Totally. Oh.
Yeah, no, most of my resolutions I made as like a teenager. But yeah, I've tried to do no sugar, tried to do read the Bible every day, I tried to work out a couple times a week for the year, which I was already a ballerina, so it was like I was trying to add working out on top of being in a studio 3 to 4,
Literally
5 hours
out.
a day, which was dumb. I tried to run. Gosh, what else? That's all that comes to mind right now. But all of my, I mean, again, I was a teenager, so I was literally a child. But all of them fell short, and I learned pretty quickly, I don't feel good when I actually can't do this ridiculous thing that I've just decided out of nowhere I should do to be a better person. So for me personally, at the beginning of this year, or towards the end of last year, I decided, what can I actually add to my life instead of trying to pull something away to reveal a more holy being? What can I actually add that's going to add value to my life? And so I decided I was going to do something every day that showed myself that I was kind to myself, that I love myself, and that I'm putting myself first. I was raised by a 2. So we help, we give away, we do all the things for others. But I really wanted to cultivate like self-advocacy. And so that's what my year has looked like this year. Every day I'm like, what can I do to be kind to myself? Or what do I need? And those things change. Some days it's like, I need to go make a green juice, and then some days it's I need a Dr. Pepper with my hamburger, and those things are allowed to change. Some days it's saying yes, and some days it's saying no. Some days it's I'm going to completely clean the house so I have more emotional space, and some days it's like I'm going to sit here in my feels and chill all day. And I think that's the beauty of adding something like that. That's like a practice. Is I'm actually self-assessing for what I need in the moment, which is forcing me to be present to support myself.
Yeah, it was interesting that you brought up Lent, because I remember I was a 5th grader, and all of our parents were doing very extreme fasts that year.
No TV, no technology.
Like me and my friends, no, it was like liquid fast for 40 days. Type of stuff.
I would always stress out when my mom did those things.
and we were like, this is normal. This is what you do when you love God. And so as a 5th grader, I did like 1 meal a day and the rest liquid for the whole Lent. And I had a friend, she did a full liquid fast the whole time. And I'm like, 5th and 6th graders do not need to be like doing extreme fasting ever. No. Like, maybe like wait until you're like closer to adulthood when you can make those decisions.
More developed.
Yeah, it's just like I look back and I'm like, sometimes those sort of give up something for 40 days attitudes feel like super toxic.
Yeah.
And that it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter what age you are. Like, let your devotion show to the Lord. Yeah. It's like, well, I mean, like as a 5th grader, I guarantee you, I needed the extra nutrition. I was a little person, and it was like...
And that also shows, like, my holiness and relationship to God is dependent on what I can do.
Or what you, like cut out from your life.
Sacrifice and remove. And I think that's a very strange concept. It's biblical. But also, like, this idea that, like, I have to pull things away from me in order to be more holy. Create more space for God. It's like God can infiltrate all areas of your life. But yes, as I remember in a 6th grade, we gave up like all technology or like all sugar or like something wild. It's like, why?
And I think like, I'm not saying like, I'm not knocking fasting or anything like that for people who are religious and like practice those things. That's great. I'm just saying like, looking back, this kind of New Year's resolution along with Lent and sort of this idea of like purging things from yourself, it just feels like so extreme at some points. It's like we actually grow a little more gradually. Anyways, sorry, that was a little tangent there.
No, it's a good tangent.
I mean, I think Lent is pretty different from a New Year's resolution in a lot of ways.
Because, it's a lot shorter.
Yeah, it's shorter and has a much different intention. And I think that a lot of people do Lent without realizing what it's about.
Right.
And not realizing really the significance behind it. They're just like, oh, good opportunity for me to go on a diet. Or like, good opportunity for me to like not watch too much TV. And
sure.
Absolutely.
That's definitely not the intention behind Lent. And I will say that I love fasting. I think that it's a really beautiful practice. But
I do too. Just not when you're in 5th grade.
No, you don't.
Not when you're a child.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think that children fasting is probably a slippery slope. I don't know all the nutrition information behind that, but it doesn't seem like that's ideal for a child to do.
And it's like eating disorders and things like this.
Yeah, for sure.
So it is different, but I'm just saying that's like kind of the culture with.
Well, and it can be treated the same.
Right, and it's always kind of like cut something out because that's taking you away from Jesus, and it's like we're never necessarily setting our focus on like focusing on Jesus, you know, like And I'm not saying it's always that way or whatever, but in my experience looking back, I'm like, I can't believe I did that.
Totally. And that's actually, it's that mindset that actually led me to look at what do I actually want to add to my life, because I was looking around as a child and seeing how many people were stressing about what they could take away from their life and what their Lent commitment was. And I was like, I actually want to see what I can add to my life that actually invites Jesus in, instead of being like, I've got to freak out and get rid of something. And I know that the intention of Lent is very different from that, but the way I've observed it being practiced led me to be like, I actually just want to do it differently. Because the point is to bring more of Jesus in, not to hyper focus on one thing.
Well, and the New Year's resolution, I feel like in Christian circles has kind of been, it's like Lent, but for a year, essentially. It's kind of how, like, that's really how it's sort of been wrapped up, I guess, when it comes to the new year and the sermons that are talking about New Year's resolutions or a word over your life or whatever for the year is like, that's kind of like, you know, it's basically just Lent 2.0, in my opinion, in the way that it's presented in the church. But
yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up in it, so I feel like I don't really have that experience as much. But I can definitely get how, I mean, church is very good at perverting things and then twisting them, and
it's all good and
choosing
well-intended or whatever, but it usually just sort of gets like wrapped up in a diet or a book reading plan that you can't keep to or whatever.
Well, to answer your question from before.
Yes, we got a little off track.
New Year's resolutions. I feel like I actually genuinely don't remember any New Year's resolutions that I have had that I didn't do.
That's awesome.
But I also don't remember many at all. So there's kind of I literally remember like 2 that I've had, and that was it. So I had one New Year's resolution to stop using heat on my hair. And that started like, I think it was New Year's 2017, like going into 2017. And I haven't since then. It's been almost 4 years. So that was one, because I knew that I wanted to start to embrace my natural hair. I knew that I was going to be going on the world race later on that year, and I wanted to not bring heat tools to the world race, like traveling all over the world. And so I switched to a natural hair care routine. So that was one that I really loved. And then I had a New Year's resolution at the beginning of 2020, which was to go through the entire Bible. And I did that in 90 days with my best friend. And that was also great. Like, I sort of ingested the Old Testament like I hadn't really ever before. So many stories stood out that I had like overlooked before. Like, I've read through the Bible a bunch of times, but like this time was really beautiful, especially going through it so quickly. I'd never done it quickly like that. I was very apprehensive, but my best friend was like, do this with me, and I was like, okay. So doing that as well was something that I really enjoyed. I think that maybe to dive into a little bit of why those things were successful as opposed to a lot of New Year's resolutions. The thing with my hair was something I had been thinking about for a long time. It was something that I had been learning about. I had been like watching YouTube videos about like how to take care of curly hair. I had been realizing that I have curly hair and not just frizzy hair, because I thought I just had frizzy hair. And realizing like, I really want to make like my missionary work easier by not having to bring along all these things. I can't bring a hair curler and a dryer and all these things in my one backpack I have to take around the world for a year. And so with all those things considered, like, I was very motivated to do that. And it's something that's become like just a lifestyle change because that's still lasted and I still embrace that part of like the way my hair naturally works. So I think that's why that one worked. And then with reading the Bible in 90 days, I think that the fact that I had somebody else with me in it was very motivating because I was like, I gotta keep up for her. Like, so that one was a little bit different, but it's also like, I mean, I think there were days that I missed and then I would catch up and different things like that. And I mean, that was fine. Like, I had grace for myself in that. I didn't allow days that I missed reading for whatever reason, like, get me down. Like, I just continued on. And I think I might have actually finished in like 94 days or something, but like, who cares? I still got through it.
It was like, it's still awesome. Like, to get through that in that amount of time.
Yeah. So that was, I think, why that worked well too. And I mean, I love the Bible and I love reading the Bible. So like, that was helpful as well. But yeah, those are mine.
No, that's good. I actually think I did do a read the Bible in a year one time. And towards the end, it kind of dissolved. So it was like, at the end of the year, in reflection, it was like I did it technically, but it wasn't like I was cultivating it was just a goal to me. And so I was just like speed reading through stuff. And it for me didn't yield lots of fruit. Like, I think it's beneficial to have an ingestion of any kind of the Bible at any time. So that's great. But to me, it wasn't like, oh wow, like I got a real good refresher on the Bible, or I don't know. I was like probably 15 or something, but still good. Not a bad goal. But I had tried that one. I had forgotten about that. One of my favorite New Year's resolutions that I made was after college. I was really burnt out on reading because it was always required for different classes. It was required in high school for points and things like that. And I love reading, but had felt like just over it. And I wanted to like build back up that love of reading in my life. So I made a goal to read 12 books. This must have been for the year 2019. And I did. I think I ended up reading like 13 or something. And it was like a slow enough goal that it wasn't overwhelming, but it was still enriching. And I use a library app on my phone. And so it has you have like 21 days to read the book until they return it. And so that was motivating for me to actually finish the books that I checked out. And by the end of it, like now, 2 years later, I feel like, oh wow, like I've still kind of kept up that reading, and it hasn't necessarily been like 12 books a year or any particular pattern, but I enjoy reading and like continue to do it in my life, and that's something that I wanted back. And so that for me was the only resolution I've ever done that I've been like, yeah, that was super great, and it was just fun.
Yeah. One thing that I would want to call out in that one is that I think that we can get caught up in wanting to replicate the goals that other people around us have in order to be successful or whatever.
Right.
And like every time that you tell that about like how you read 12 books in a year, that sounds like insurmountable to me. Like that sounds like an insane amount of books to read. Like to read one book every month. Like I'm such a slow reader and like have such a hard time with that I'm like, I feel like I could read like 6 books in a year. So I think that that's one thing I want to call out is like when we're making these sort of resolutions or you're making goals, like to not compare how much you do to how much somebody else does. Right. Because you're not them, like everybody has their unique abilities and skills and talents and specialties and some people are better at getting through books and other people aren't. Or, I mean, even when I did the 90-day Bible plan with my best friend, like she finished before me, and like that was fine. So
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
good. Like Kelly, for example, probably reads like 4 books a month. She's like always reading. But like, and I grew up in a family of bookworms where like you just read never ending. You know, you're always having a book. And so you read like 30 books a year or 50 books a year or whatever.
oh my gosh.
Which is great. I think that's amazing. I was like 12. And for someone else, it might be like, I want to read 1 book this year.
And that's a good
And
goal.
that's a great goal. And depending on the book, like I am reading a certain book right now that I pick it up and I read a couple chapters, I get really triggered and then I have to put it down and process. So like there's, you know,
I
it's
have
all
one of
depends.
those.
Yeah.
I have one of those, but it's actually like you read a few pages. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's like I'm dying because I'm on page like 30 and I've been reading it for like 4 months. But I think what your guys are really naming is the opportunity to just know yourself and be in tune. Like there's this guy that I go to the gym with who his goal is to beat the state record for the heaviest deadlift. And he's about 20 pounds away.
Super
And
cool.
he's going to kill it. He's totally going to make that goal. Me, I'm like, I just want to go to Pilates class once a week and CrossFit once a week. I'm good. And so you just, you have that opportunity to know yourself and know what's going to work well for
Right.
you. And if you read that 1 book in 6 months, great. Maybe you can read another book and then you've doubled your goal. Like, you know, you can take it as it goes.
Yeah. And I think like that 12-book goal was a goal that served me. You know, like I wanted to read more in my life and I knew I enjoyed reading, but I knew that I needed something that would help motivate me to like achieve something that I already wanted,
Yeah.
as opposed to like, oh, well, everyone got to come up with a New Year's resolution and I guess I could be a better, you know, writer, so I better write every day, you know? And it's like, is that actually like, did I have an actual like tangible goal in there, or is it just sort of like, well, this is what I'm doing, like, go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm knocking a lot on New Year's resolutions. They're not all
It's
bad.
not a bad thing.
It's not all bad.
It's the way you implement it.
Yeah. I think it's all about your mindset around it. And I think also we need to remember we have the freedom to make resolutions any time of the year, which you mentioned.
Yes.
Any
Like,
time of the year.
You can do that. I mean, for example, Kelly Ann literally has done that. And starting in October,
Yeah.
you made a resolution for your 27th year of life. As you turned 26, you would do something new every month. And that's amazing. And that is a resolution
Yeah.
that you made at a different year marker. That's
Yeah.
okay. It doesn't even have to be a year marker. So,
And it's been really fun too. It's like, okay, like, what do I want? Again, that same mindset of what do I want to add to my life this year? What do I want to cultivate? I want to cultivate adventure and newness and the concept of learning something without having pressure to be the expert, just for the sake of it. And it's been really fun, and I'm still going strong.
Well, and I think even like you did 90 days, you can set a resolution. It doesn't have to be a year.
yeah.
And then after that 90 days is up, you can reassess and see if you want to do
Yeah.
something else.
That's what I actually, when I set goals for myself, like I did a workout challenge for myself in January, where like for most of January I did cardio 5 times a week, I think was what it was.
Ooh.
This was, I had a trainer, I was already working out. So this was like something that was a part of something I was already doing. It wasn't just
Yeah.
like a
It
cold,
wasn't like you were
cold
suddenly
turkey.
like, yeah.
I'm just going to
I've
run
never
every
run
single
before.
day.
Now I'm going to run every day.
So I was doing this 5 times a day, but I only had a goal to do it for that month. And like, that was it. And then when I was done, I was done. And so I kind of like those shorter term goals as well, because then you can like decide whether it's a habit that you want to set long term or not, you know? Because I mean, that would not have been sustainable for that long, but it was like a short term like sprint in my life that I wanted to do. And I've actually been thinking about doing it again. So
Little
Keep
New
us
Year's resolution.
posted.
a new month resolution, you know, those 30 days. All of that being said, now that we've knocked on New Year's resolutions a ton, do you guys have any New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I do.
Cool.
So, I guess this is a New Year's resolution. I wasn't really thinking of it that way. This is just conveniently the time that it was going to happen. But myself and also my 2 roommates are all getting rock club memberships in January. And we're going to start going rock climbing every week. We very spontaneously went to an outdoor rock wall that's just outside of the city and decided, hey, we want to do this more. And so we got some climbing shoes that were on sale at this same rock club on Black Friday, and now we're gonna go. So really the reason we're doing it in January is because we figure there's going to be a sale on memberships because every gym has sales on memberships, and it was already close enough, and we knew we weren't going to have time in December to go because it's crazy in December because Christmas. So that is our New Year's resolution. That's pretty much it.
That's great.
I love
That's an
that
awesome resolution.
so much, and I'm obsessed. I don't really have like a set in stone solid resolution. I want to continue what I'm doing now, which is trying something new every month. This month I've been working on a small little comedy sketch, which the event I was going to perform this comedy sketch at was canceled due to California being in the purple tier, which honestly I breathed a sigh of relief. I was like, thank God. But I want to continue trying a new thing every month. I think it's so awesome to cultivate newness in your life, and I want to continue to cultivate learning, which I do through books already, but I actually have an incredible workplace that we have a Lydia learning subscription, which is now LinkedIn Learning, and we also have
Linda.
Linda.
Is that what you mean?
Is it Linda?
Linda.
I definitely
I've never heard
thought
of
it was
this.
Lydia.
Lynda.com?
I don't
Linda
know.
Tutorial?
Yeah. So like you can do like graphic design, you can do like learn all kinds of online professional skills, as well as we have a masterclass subscription. So I want to utilize those resources and learn as much as I can. Because those are incredible things that I actually wish I had on my own and considered getting on my own, and now my workplace just happens to have them. So I might try to do 1 class a month so I can kind of go at my own pace and take some time. But I just want to continue to grow new skills and learn and expand. So
Yeah. I don't have any New Year's resolutions.
Well, dang.
I mean, I have things that I'm continuing to push myself in growing. I work out twice a week, and not always, probably all year. You've probably heard me complain about this all year. I'd really love to start meal planning. It's been an uphill battle. So like I have things that I'm like, I know that these are things I want to grow in. I want to stop eating so many hamburgers with Dr. Pepper because I don't have a meal plan for the evening. You know, like there are things like that I would like to set in place. But in terms of like this year, I feel like 2020 was enough.
2020 was
I
enough.
got through it, and I'm not necessarily interested in starting anything new. But
Yeah.
as life happens and as things happen, like I'm going to continue to grow. I'm working on a screenplay. I'm doing a podcast with my friends that I want to continue to grow and cultivate. So I feel very full in life right now, and I feel like the things that I care most about are the things that I'm pressing into, and that is enough for me.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point too. Like
Yes.
if your life is full, like don't feel the pressure to continue to add more things for the sake of adding more things.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
give the energy to the things that you find important and that you care about.
If
Yeah.
anything, my New Year's resolution should be to like take a day off every month.
Yes. I support
Yeah.
that New Year's resolution.
I should
Yeah.
like have a rest day,
Like an actual
a dedicated
rest day.
rest day where I don't go to work.
Like your husband can clean the house
Yes.
and do all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think after what a year 2020 was, really, as we step into 2021, we should just everybody give yourself a pat on the back. Don't
Take a
give your
deep
neighbors a
breath.
pat on the back because COVID. Don't touch them.
Unless
But-
it's 3 households or
Unless
less.
they're within your household or an adjacent household that's part of your bubble. And then resolve to, in 2021, survive.
And you know what? You made it.
Yeah.
You made it. Good
I'm just
job.
gonna ride the rest of the wave into 2021, and when things settle, then maybe I will have a new outlook or a new thing. And guess what? I can set that resolution in June.
You can. You can set it any time. You can set it as early or as late as you want. You know, it's all according to you, knowing yourself, knowing what's good for you and what's going to work for you.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
the beautiful thing about the way that our world works is that every morning is a new morning. So there's always a good time to reset.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I bless you all as you reflect and ruminate on the past year and the past years and look forward to the future. You are enough and you are doing awesome. And whether or not you have a New Year's resolution, I wish you all the best. So please follow us at Woman Being Podcast on Instagram.
That's a good New Year's resolution, is to follow
It
us.
is. Don't miss that amazing content.
Commit to commenting on every single one of our posts.
And liking every single one.
Yes. That's a good news.
Also,
Give us a review.
Leave us a podcast review on all of the sites. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We take it. We'll take it.
also telling us what kind of content you want to see.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. We actually recently got a DM about a Woman Crush Wednesday that we're going to be featuring soon. So keep an eye out for a listener recommended female hero of ours, or who has just become ours. And, you know, like, love you lots.